Peyton Walsh, he is in Kyiv, and Nick,
think about how many billions of dollars got wasted over this shit.
Told me that, you know, you were kind of out of the camera lens because there is a threat that's happening now that's in direct context of this ceasefire discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon here for there to be air raid sirens. We had some early this morning. We've had some in the last 10 minutes. This, though, specifically the Ukrainian Air Force warning of a ballistic missile.
He said I'll meet with Putin on Thursday?
Kiev,
oh, my God.
Yeah, as I say, not uncommon. Every night, Ukraine,
that's huge.
with the exception of a couple of nights during Russia's unilaterally declared ceasefire in which they continue front-line fighting. Every night, Ukraine is hit by Russian attack drones and often ballistic missiles, too. So that's just some context, though, for this discussion of diplomacy, which at times can feel very ethereal and detached from the gritty reality here of missiles being fired, often at civilian areas.
Damn.
So where we are today is a European demand with Ukraine and with US backing for a 30-day unconditional ceasefire has not been accepted at this point by Russian President Vladimir Putin. And indeed, in very late night comments early this morning, indeed, he talked about how Ukraine hadn't honoured previous ceasefires. Ukraine says Russia has indeed. There's evidence, frankly, that these have been very rocky when they've been declared unilaterally, certainly in terms of Moscow's adherence to them. He talked too about the need for direct negotiations between Ukraine and Russia and gave a date for that, Istanbul, on Thursday. Now, none of that is new. There have been talks between some parties in Istanbul in the past. And indeed,
I could see that
the idea of direct talks
doubt.
between the two countries has been agreed to in different types of wording by both Kiev and Moscow. So what Putin, I think, is suggesting is another diplomatic phase here in a country and a capital, in Istanbul, a city where indeed we've seen diplomacy before. But we've heard from the French President Emmanuel Macron, who did a lot of the lifting to get us to this point of the demand for a ceasefire, speaking to President Trump in the past days many times indeed. He called this, suggested this was another delaying tactic. He said in a tweet and a post on social media that there must be a ceasefire first. You can't have negotiations while civilians are indeed being shelled.
He's right about that. I mean, it just makes sense.
Dance, puppet.
Yeah, that's the same logic that I was like, because you remember how, like, whenever Trump paused the tariffs to do a negotiation, this is the same logic that I was using. Like, yeah, of course, right, 100%.
By Russian bombs, and so it appears the European demand remains the same. That's been echoed by Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, that ceasefire first, then talks. What we don't know yet is if, indeed, the White House, President Trump putting a very positive post out after Putin's comments last night.
Yeah.
We don't know if that is, in fact, going to result in the massive sanctions that French President Emmanuel Macron talked about yesterday as being the consequence if Russia doesn't sign up to the ceasefire.
Wow.
He said he had American backing for that. Donald Trump said he continue to work with Ukraine and Russia to be sure this process moves forwards. We don't know the timing of when those potential consequences might.
I mean, how can they put that many sanctions on Russia already that aren't already on them? And also, don't they rely on Russia? I know Germany does. They rely on Russia for tons of energy. So I don't know really how much they could actually do.
Kick in, or indeed if they'll have the same kind of hard backing.
Not anymore.
The Europeans suggested they would.
They were able to move away from it
yesterday in Kiev.
Nick Peyton Walsh for us there in Kyiv. Thanks so much.
Good.
Let's go down to CNN Sebastian Shukla in London. Sebastian, the consequences,
here.
as Nick laid out, we don't know.
That's good.
Yet.
I didn't
what
know
is
that. That's
clear
new.
is that this is not going to satisfy Europe after they set that ultimatum, that demand, just yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's right. What the Kremlin and President Putin are trying to do here is move the ball back into Western Europe's court here and say, look, okay, you guys are prepared to put an ultimatum on us of this ceasefire, which needs to begin on Monday. But what President Putin is doing is saying, okay, I raise your 30-day ceasefire ultimatum on Monday. I'm going to say, let's have direct talks between Kyiv and Moscow, which is something, as Nick was saying, is not new, but certainly haven't happened since the early days of the invasion in February 2022. So this is President Putin again trying to pull the rug and fool and trick the West into thinking that he is making and serious about peace and ending.
I mean, I really can't say he's like, I mean, really, he's been fucking around a lot.
I beg of you.
I mean, yeah, it's why I watch CNN. Well, I mean, they're just explaining what happened, right? I mean, I try to watch. People always criticize. It's funny because like people criticize me for watching Fox News, and then when I watch CNN, people criticize me for watching CNN. I think some people just don't want to hear things they disagree with. That's all.
The war in
That's
Ukraine.
the real
there
reason.
may be some substance to that. Don't forget that the administration led by Donald Trump has kowtowed to Moscow in many ways. You know, it sidelined Ukraine, it's sidelined its European partners and held direct talks with Moscow.
Yeah,
but
of
then
course.
that rhetoric changed again, where we saw Senator Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, come out and say, well, look, we're losing patience, and the administration...
Isn't it crazy that White House crash out with Zelensky was like... It's crazy to go back on that and remember that that even happened. That was a crazy level of a crash out.
Strung on a little by the Kremlin.
Live
So
on
this may
TV
be
and
yet
everything.
Another ploy by Moscow to be able to say, look, no, we're serious
You don't have
about
the cards,
negotiations,
yeah.
but within
Where's your
all of
thank
this,
you?
the context and framework is so important. You can say you want to have the discussions, but so far, President Zelensky and nobody else has ruled out attending them.
Seb Shukla for us in London. Thanks so much. Do you think that this offer from President Putin attempting to skip by this request or this demand for a 30-day ceasefire and go straight to talks in Istanbul on Thursday will be enough to peel off President Trump, who wants a quick finish, who wants a win, from what we saw from him yesterday?
They're trying to make Trump look
standing
bad.
shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine and the rest of Europe.
Yeah.
I think it's designed to do that. Trump wants quick action, and Russia is showing that it is on the side of peace. And I think Zelensky's response is also designed to appease Trump, to say, look, I'm not the one.
They say they what? Wait, what? Wait, what? That Russia's on the side of peace? Wait, what?
in the way of peace. The Europeans, I think, are taking the more realistic view. We've heard from President Macron of France saying this is Russia just buying time. I think that's the more accurate description of it.
Yeah, that's
but
probably what's
both
going on.
Moscow and Kyiv are signaling towards Washington, not towards the Europeans.
Bobby Ghosh, always good to have
Sure.
you. Thank you.
If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day,
That didn't
24
happen.
hours.
That did not happen.
I'll meet with Putin. I'll meet with Zelensky.
Yep, that
They
did
both
not
have
happen.
weaknesses and they both have strengths.
Yep.
And within 24 hours, that war will be settled. I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine totally settled. I'll have it done in 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's been more than 24 hours since the president became president again. Putin did say overnight that he was open to direct talks, unconditional talks with Ukraine, but Zelensky says there must be a ceasefire first. Over the weekend, the U.S. and European leaders
Surely.
threatened sanctions against Russia, but they
It's
did
not
not
like he
agree
didn't
to
try.
a ceasefire. How do you think
sure
what do you
Biden
think the way
tried
that
too.
Trump is going to handle these situations?
You heard that clip, and you heard it from this report from reporting Olivia was talking about it. He's very relational, and he's a nationalist. He has very good relationships with people like Modi, with Putin, quite frankly, and they have their own interests. Modi has his own interests, his own popularity base in India because because of Hindu nationalism, because of the way he's run that country.
Biden was trying to
turns
stay
out
awake.
when
Yeah,
America
true.
pulls back a bit from the world and encourages nationalist impulses,
Actually reminds me of
nationalist
that View
leaders.
thing. I'll watch
Modi,
that after
who's
this.
seen even by some in India as a strongman. They don't always act in America's best interest. Russia's not acting in America's interest. Russia's acting in its own. Ukraine and Europe have less faith in the administration actually the United States as a broker than they did. They're looking more towards each country's individual interest. And I think you're starting to see the very beginnings of what that means. If the United States is not swooping in with a deal, if it's dealing with these countries as they are, with their own intent, with what's best for their polities, they're going to get a different deal. You saw in India, one story that came out of this was Chinese Chengdu plane. The plane that China was manufacturing performed very well. A reminder that there is a vast power much closer to India with much more history there.
Did he see the video game footage? Oh, jeez.
It has its own influence growing in the region because America's pulling out. So there are a lot of complications that are harder than getting a deal one day because you're friends with the president or the prime minister.
Sure, right, okay, well, there it is. And this guy's a comedian, right? Yeah, India and China are friends. Yes, oh my God, Armor's got another victim. Wow, bro, like, how do you play this shit? And, like, I don't even know how you do this. Like, this is unbelievable how this fucking happens. But I guess this is the way the world is now, right?